Hey friends, welcome to the Morning Brew. Today we have a guest, Michelle Chu. Michelle, you're a worship leader. You are a past intern. You are a kids music aficionado. You are a brownie chef, a dog owner, so many different things.
I wear a lot of hats.
And today you are a guest on the Morning Brew. Thank you for being with us.
Oh, thanks for having me. Love to be here.
Super excited. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about worship. As a worship leader, this is something that I know that you love very much. We're also going to be playing a bit of a game together because in past Morning Brews we've done Bible trivia, which has been a lot of fun. And I thought we'd change it up a little bit this week. And then we're also going to be talking about summer internships happening at the church very soon because you have a bit of a connection to all of these topics.
I do.
But I think to start off, let's go into a bit of a game. Let me explain this.
Yes.
So you have a cell phone, I'm assuming.
I do.
And do you ever use these wonderful emojis?
I do sometimes,
Amazing, amazing. So we're going to be going through different Bible stories. Now, these are all from the Old Testament this week, and we're going to be trying to depict what Bible story is being shown based off of the emojis on the screen. So let's do a bit of an example. Here's a test one.
Okay.
So name the Bible story. We got some people, sun, apple, snake, and then away. What could this possibly mean?
That could probably be Adam and Eve.
Adam and Eve, let's see.
The creation.
Adam and Eve, Genesis 1 to 3. So
What's the point?
Like away, like out of Eden.
Oh, get out of here.
Get out of here. So let's try this. We got 5 rounds.
Okay.
If you're watching at home, feel free to join in the chat to let us know the answers. See if you can stump Michelle.
Yes.
I think you'll do pretty good on these though.
I don't know. If you have watched previous Morning Brews when we had done Bible trivia, I lost every time. So we'll see.
We'll see. Here's round 1.
Okay.
Name the Bible story.
Okay. We're gonna give them some time.
No.
Oh, okay.
We'll go right into it. So we got the crown, we got praying, a lion, and celebration.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna guess that it would be Daniel in the lion's den.
Daniel and the lion's den. Can we see
Wow.
Daniel and the lion's den? Daniel chapter 6.
Not gonna lie, if that lion wasn't there, I'd be like, I don't know.
I don't know.
I know a lot of crowns, a lot of crowns.
Let's try this one.
Okay.
7 rotations. We got a trumpet, a city, and then an X. What could this one be?
Okay. I'm trying to think of the name of the story, but this is the story when they walked around Jericho, and then on the 7th time the walls came down. I'm trying to think of the.
Yeah, the fall of Jericho.
Okay, I didn't know if there was like a more particular name for that.
No, that's great. You're 2 for 2 so far.
Woohoo!
Round 3.
Okay.
Name the Bible story. Bread, fish, eating, a family.
Beautiful. That would be. Wait, you said this is Old Testament?
Or this one might be New Testament.
I was gonna say, I think this seems like Jesus feeds the 5,000.
Let's see. Feeding of the 5,000.
Wow, that's not Old Testament though.
It's definitely not Old Testament. Name the Bible story.
Okay, this little man happens to be Moses, and this is Moses in the burning bush, and where the Lord spoke to him and gave him his name of I Am.
Do you think Moses was blonde?
For sure, he definitely looked like a Simpson. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Name the Bible story.
Do you want to walk me through these ones, Brandon?
Sure. So we got a construction worker, crane building some sort of object.
Okay.
They're speaking, and then some sort of like, what? What is happening here?
Okay, so this seems like the construction of the Tower of Babel, I don't even know how to say it, where they were like, let's get as close to God as we can get. But then the Lord said, I'm gonna confuse you. And then they all started speaking different languages. And then they're like, what?
What is happening?
Oh, what is happening?
Tower of Babel. So good.
Babel.
Michelle, you are a genius.
Thank you.
I think we have one more.
I actually got really lost until you started talking about that one.
Oh, that is the end. So Michelle, 5 for 5.
Woohoo!
I think this is your best Morning Brew game show so far.
Definitely my best.
100%. Let us know if you're watching at home, if you're playing along, how many did you get along? I think this is a really fun game.
Yeah.
We were doing youth group games last week with Pastor Brent, and we had to talk about plural words.
Okay.
It was called moose, meese, moosin'. And you had to say, like, the word is moose, which of these three is the correct plural of moose?
Oh.
And it was pretty interesting because English is a hard language.
What's the plural of moose?
Moose.
Meeson. Look at all these
Look at all these
meeson.
meeson.
Cool.
Michelle, let's talk a little bit about worship.
Okay.
You're a worship leader.
I
You've
am.
been at our church for a few years now. You started off going through the apprenticeship program. Now, as a full worship leader, you're mainly in Bowmanville these days, but sometimes you're here for online worship, you know, retreats, Ajax, different things like this. Take us a little bit about through the process of coming to the church, starting off as an apprentice through the worship leading to where you are now as a worship leader.
Cool. So I started out just being a congregant at Sanctus. And I always loved singing growing up. I always loved, just music. So then when I became a Christian, I was like, I would see like the worship people on the stage and I was like, wow, that is so cool. Like, you guys are cool. And so one day actually, you're a part of my story, Brandon. We went to, I wanted to record a cover because in my head I looked at like the stage and I was like, I could not do that. Like, they're cool, they're next level, but I'm just me. So I was like, let's just record a cover because then I don't have to face rejection of like, I'm gonna audition and then I'm not gonna get it. So we recorded a cover and I was telling you like, oh, actually, that would be so cool to do worship. And you're like, yeah, why don't you audition? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I could do that. But anyways, you pushed me to do that. And then that day we recorded the audition tape. And so I did my audition tape and then, spoke with the worship team, got onboarded there as just, as like a background vocalist, which was super fun. I loved it. It was really cool and like a unique experience because growing up I had done little things here and there with like singing on a stage, but it does feel different when you're leading worship because there's an aspect of it that you want to be good at what you do, but then there's the other aspect of it that it's not just being good at what you do, it's about worshiping God and leading other people into that.
Yeah.
So there's a whole other dynamic that I had to start learning. And then a few months later, it was brought up like, hey, would you want to be a worship leader? And I was like, absolutely, I would want to do that, right? And so started that process of apprenticing. So had someone kind of walking me through that, what that looked like, helping me show what it looks like to plan sets, to, just to lead people, like I said, and to actually practice your gifting in addition to just like your talents, but your like actual gifting as a worship leader. And so we worked through that, and then I've just been leading ever since.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I love how we talked just briefly about the difference between auditioning as a vocalist to now apprenticing as a worship leader.
Yeah.
At Sanctus, we don't audition worship leaders because we believe it's something that you have to be a part of the team already, that you're spending time within the community, you're understanding the culture of our team, but then also the worship leader has this different spiritual authority because now you're doing the vocal, the actual like work of it, but you're also spending the time in, putting together a set list and praying over this thing, spending time in the Word to know like what songs fit best within the theme of the Sunday morning. And all those things are things that are learned over time.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I am still learning over, like, I don't even know how long, maybe I've been doing this 2 years now, but even in that, I learn every Sunday something new. But it is really, it's really something I value about Sanctus is the fact that we do this where it's not just like, okay, you're a talented singer, come be a worship leader, because the church really values the, being in a right position within the community as well, and how that looks like to serve when you're not front and center.
Yeah.
And that's something that's really important, which I think should be very important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you get into worship leading, there's a lot of preparation that goes on throughout the week. Talk a little bit about, you get the planning center schedule, I'm leading next week. What does it look like now leading up to the Sunday? Because you don't just put the songs in and, hope for the best. What does that look like for you in actually crafting a time of worship? So
there is a lot that goes into it, and it's different every week. So firstly would be actually picking the songs, which can be done a million different ways. Sometimes it's more of just sitting down and praying. Sometimes it's looking over the sermon notes for the next week and seeing like themes, or even just looking at what the message is on. So sometimes we have like that little quick title of like, okay, this is on Acts, whatever, 16 or whatever. And just reading through that passage and praying through that and saying, you know, what did God speak to me through this message? And what do I think could be an encouragement or something that'll help support the sermon?
Yeah.
And so I'll think about that. There's so many different factors too. I've even picking like musical keys that flow together well, picking, you know, songs that take you through like a journey. So usually the typical starting song is a little more upbeat, and then, you know, it becomes a little more reflective, and usually the last song would kind of respond more so to the message. But even all of that has to be so intentional, and it's such like, I don't take that lightly. I actually think I'm often like, oh, I don't know what to pick. This is so tough. But just praying that God will lead me to lead what is needed for the specific church congregation as well. So it's also interesting to note that the songs that Ajax sings on a Sunday morning aren't always the songs that Bowmanville will sing on a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
And so I'm picking the songs knowing the congregation I'm at as well, and thinking what song would really build up this congregation. So there's a lot of factors to even just that aspect that I could go on for. But then the Sunday, it looks like praying for the service, so praying for the people that I'm with, praying for just the people that are gonna be coming in the building that day, you know, praying that things go smoothly, because not all the time do they go smoothly, especially with technology and all the things.
Sure.
And then actually, one thing that I haven't done since I started this, which I realized makes a huge difference, is actually worshiping through the set. So not just practicing the songs, because you can sit there and practice the songs or sing the songs, but actually worshiping through the set and having my own personal time of worship. Because one thing that Pastor Trevor mentioned once that really spoke up to me was, he said you can't, or maybe you shouldn't, be leading people where you haven't been.
Sure.
And so if you haven't worshiped through the set in the way that you've put it together, on that Sunday morning, you're like, I'm figuring this out with you. And as a leader, you want to have some confidence, like you mentioned, like authority. You want to know where people are going. You want to know how it feels to go through these songs and sing these words one after another. So actually worshiping through the set is my biggest thing that helps prepare for a Sunday.
I think that's a really good point that you bring up, because when we talk about like church language, often when we say, okay, we're going to go into worship, we think of, you know, the musical worship time. But worship is so much more than just playing instruments, right? The first time worship's actually mentioned in the Bible is in Genesis, when Abraham, he says that he's going to go up the mountain with Isaac to worship. He was actually going to sacrifice Isaac with this trust that the Lord is going to, you know, fulfill what his promises. This is worship, doing, you know, honoring the Lord with everything that he's given to us. So I think it's important to note that, like, as you're preparing for the Sunday morning, the musical part of the service, that worshiping through it is important, because worship isn't just music, right? It's everything that we do to prepare ourselves to bring our best, an offering before the Lord. So I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, and going back to that point, it is like, what am I going to sacrifice this morning, right? Am I going to sacrifice how I think I should be looking, or exactly what I think I should be singing, or you know, my time, and all the different things you're coming thinking, what am I sacrificing? Because no matter what choice you make, there's always a sacrifice. But it's knowing that sacrifice of worshiping and of being in that space is so much more valuable than anything else that anything else that I could have instead of that.
Let's talk about Bowmanville specifically. So as we've gone to the multi-site model, it's been great to see that there's differences between the different congregations. You mentioned how like Ajax might be a little bit different in the songs that you sing. What's going on right now at Bowmanville? Because we know it's growing. It's great. Every time that I'm over there's more people that I don't recognize. People are getting more engaged and connected. You know, give us a little bit about what's happening in Bowmanville right now.
Yeah, so Bowmanville is thriving, in my opinion. I feel like Bowmanville is really going deep into faith right now. And so a lot of the times when I'm picking songs that are very reflective, and I tend to go a lot towards more old hymns of being like rooted in the deep, like authentic truth, and things that resonate with people that aren't just like, okay, here's the next song, here's the next new song, right? And sometimes those are great. We actually have had a few new songs we've introduced recently that the congregation have really responded well to. But I think there's just something about digging into that like steadfast, unchanging truth that can be found in a lot of more like traditional hymns that we're going through that I think are really powerful in the church. And our church, our congregation is getting bigger and bigger, and people are just showing up week after week. There's a lot of consistency, which is so beautiful to see. And I think the community is just so strong there, where everyone there is really intentional about spending the time, their time well.
Yeah.
Even if it's in addition to Sunday morning, going to, we have like men's nights, we had Galentine's, like all these different things that keep us connected and acting out the idea of being a body of Christ rather than just coming to church on Sunday morning, but actually being the church is something that I think Bowmanville does really well.
That's really great.
Yeah.
I love the Bowmanville community. So good.
Me too.
The last thing we're going to touch on today is summer internships. Now, this is something that both of us have actually done in the past. My first, I guess, introduction to church staff life was through a summer internship. You've been a worship intern more than once at the church, which has been so good. Talk a little bit about your experience as an intern at the church, because I think a lot of people that are interested in ministry have questions, right? Like, what does this actually look like working for a church? Because you see, what Sunday mornings look like, but you don't see what the rest of the week looks like, the connections, the work behind the scenes. Talk about your experience as a summer intern, and then for someone that's maybe interested in coming onto the church, because we have lots of different positions in production, worship, summer camps, communications, that the applications are opening now to join the team for the summer. Talk about that, and what are your favorite things about interning?
Yeah, I loved a lot of things about interning, hence why I did it more than once. My number one thing that I really appreciated was kind of going back to that worship idea of integrating like the actual worship with the practice. I think seeing the spiritual heart behind the practical day-to-day things was really beautiful. So of course there's tasks that need to get done. There's people that need to be emailed. There's just clean up on admin stuff that needs to be done, all the different tasks, but how everything was woven together by a love of Christ and how all of that was inspired and integrated in with prayer as well. So seeing the heart behind the church helped me have a different perspective of the church as well, which is so valuable being a member of the church and knowing what goes in behind it and knowing that when Pastor John or Pastor Sam or Pastor Andrew, whoever comes up and preaches a message on Sunday morning, that I know that message is not just I did some intellectual research.
Sure.
It's a prayerful and spiritual, just beautiful manifestation of God's messages to his people. And so being in that was really beautiful. And I think it is a really interesting point, because when I would tell people, oh, I'm interning at the church, they'd say, what do you do?
Yeah, exactly.
And I know for worship, a lot of it is, you think, like you said, you think it's just, okay, Sunday morning, I'm gonna come and I'm gonna worship now, but it's not like that. You come day to day, there's meetings, there's planning, there's going over everything from the last week so that if there needs to be any improvements or changes, there's maintenance, there's a million tasks for just worship. I can't even speak for the other areas, but I remember too thinking, when I first started interning, I remember thinking almost this idea of, I wonder if I'm gonna grow in my faith like an immense amount doing this thing, or if I'm gonna learn a lot more about God. And I walked away feeling slightly discouraged, but also slightly encouraged, because I didn't have that same revelation of like walking away and feeling like, wow, I grew so much in my faith. But it pointed me right back to Jesus and the idea of my walk with Jesus will never be strengthened by having more community. My walk with Jesus will always be strengthened by having more Jesus. And so no matter all the things that I do, which at that point I was doing a lot, that didn't make me necessarily closer to God.
Sure.
It may have made me closer to work. It may have made me closer to people who are, good influences, like great people. But my walk with the Lord is purely my responsibility. And just having that kind of reminder again of walking out of there and feeling like, wow, maybe I'm in the same place I was when I started, was just another reminder that this is a beautiful and a good thing to do, but it's not the thing that makes me pleasing to God's eye, right? Me being who I am is what makes me pleasing to God.
Sure.
So
that
was
relationship with the Lord rather than the works themselves
Exactly.
are what's most important.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, Michelle, thanks so much for joining us on the Morning Brew. It's been great to talk to you, great to hear your heart around worship and planning and internships, and great to see you mastering the emoji game.
Oh,
It's
thank
a lot
you.
of fun. I hope we'll get to do it again next time. But next week, Cheryl Nemhard is joining us back here once again on the Morning Brew. And as always, the Morning Brew is brewed to equip and serve. Oh my goodness, I messed that up. Brewed to inspire, serve to equip. We'll see you next week here on the Morning Brew.